Hello, my dear gardening friends. Listen, is this happening only to me, or are you having the same problem? When time comes to trim my beautiful yew, I love this nice, beautiful, fresh foliage, and I always delay cutting it, and as a result, I cut it too late a little bit. You see, I'm trying to train this yew. Right now the shape is a little bit awkward, but I want to train it eventually to have some sort of a spherical shape here, to match the spherical shape on the top of my house, to kind of unite the design of my house together. So for now it looks a little bit awkward here. I'm trying to give more space to my, by the way, look at this beautiful thing here. This is Eden Rose, which I planted this year here in this corner, and he's doing marvelous. He put nice big shoot all the way up, and I don't expect any blooms from him this year, maybe not even next year, but I'm going to create his support here very soon, because he's doing so great, and he probably will need a support in a month or so. But today we are talking about the care of roses after their big flush of blooms, and particularly somebody asked me how to prolong the first blooms of roses, and it's a very good topic this year because I damaged my ankle and I didn't trim my roses as I do every year, because every year my aim is to make as many blooms as possible. This year I didn't do it because my ankle again, so my roses went another way. So we're going to talk about that. So, in order to have a long blooming time of our roses, we need to deadhead them. This way our roses are not spending energy on creating hips, and the roses are starting to enlarge these hips very quickly here, and roses are using a lot of energy on that. So even if we leave these hips for some time, we divert the energy of the rose, and rose spend enormous amount of energy to do these guys, to develop these guys. So what happened this year, on my shrub roses I was able to deadhead them, but I didn't do it on my climbers. And usually when I do a diligent pruning of my climbers, they do produce blooms on a somewhat regular schedule for another week or two. But this year I wasn't able to do it, and I will show you on my climber inside my garden. And it almost all went into hips right away, because I didn't deadhead it through the first flush of blooms. So all of that went into hips, which is fine. I really couldn't go on the ladder. My ankle is feeling much better now, so I can do now. So somebody in messages asked me, how do I deadhead? You can do either way. If you have a lot of roses in your garden, you can just wait for all the roses to be finished with the first flush of blooms, and then go away, and in one big wave deadhead all the roses. Or like in my case, I don't have a huge collection of roses. I can dedicate time to each one of them and trim it individually. This way that first blooming time would be prolonged. Now, in case with my Queen of Sweden has a tendency to be very tall, and I learned it last year. Literally, the shoots which would be coming after the first bloom would be this high. So all these, once they stop blooming, I'm trimming them all the way down here, because this Queen of Sweden is a tall shrub. Oh, just look at my generous gardener. It's a little bit congested here, you know. We had huge wind yesterday, and look, all my sage is down, unfortunately. Oh, look at these flowers are still here. But look at my generous gardener. I let it go into hips, and almost all of it finished blooming, and generous gardener is focusing its energy on creating hips and not blooming for me. And of course it's a natural cycle of the rose to go into hips, and of course we gardeners don't want rose to do that. We want beautiful blooms. That's why we deadhead. But if you have a lot of roses, Just do it, the trimming in one wave and not a biggie. In my case, I like to deadhead my roses on a regular basis. This way they produce more blooms for me. In this case, I didn't. So look, almost everything went into hips, which is okay. So I'm going to take all the hips down. You know what, if it's too big of a job, you can even do as a trimmer, electrical trimmer, and just take the whole level of the shrub off. Of course, it's not going to be as neat of a job, but if you have a lot of roses, that's what you do. One day, the dream is that I will have a big lot of land where I can experience with all sorts of roses, and that's probably what I would be doing. I would be just hedge trimming all my roses at once. We should also not to forget that the big care of roses after their big flush of blooms would be to feed them again with whatever your fertilizer is, your preferable fertilizer. This year I use a Spoma all natural fertilizer. I think I also have Job rose fertilizer. So maybe in several days I will be feeding all my roses, because for the beginner gardener, roses are heavy feeders, they're heavy producers, they create so much show in our garden, and they want to be fed and watered properly. Excuse me. And by the way, look at this, I'm the queen of YouTube, as my kids call me, so please do subscribe to my channel and support me in my work in my garden. So that's it. This is going to be trimmed today before we have another rain here. Very beautiful spring with a lot of rain. Oh, by the way, today is the first day of summer actually. And my roses will go into this quiet time of summer before they start producing another show for us. Happy gardening. See you next time.